All right, we've got, yours has a different list than mine.
Yeah, I think
Uh-oh.
one of our callers dropped off.
Hey, so I hope he calls back. I hope that's
Yeah.
a mistake, because there was a guy who was saying that you guys are constantly talking about methodological naturalism, the foundations of science, and saying how there's no demonstrated way to confirm supernatural causation. And he thinks that we're wrong, that science can, in fact, confirm the supernatural. And I just had this argument the other day with somebody else. And that's why I asked specific questions of the first caller to give examples for these things. I'm not aware of any mechanism by which you can confirm supernatural causation. All you can confirm, let's say there was something supernatural and it was manifesting in reality, all you could ever confirm are those manifestations. You can't confirm the cause. The effect is not in and of itself confirmation of a cause. We had this discussion, actually I had it with Matt Slick, and that prompted another discussion where people were citing what my friend Richard Carrier had written about this, and evidently he and I disagree, but so I'm sorry we lost that caller.
Yeah, well, that conversation.
Oh, nope, there it is.
Oh, there he is, okay.
Hey, there you are, Josh in Redwood. Thanks for waiting. We just talked about your call.
Indeed, I'm sorry, I lost the call on back. I'll try to make it quick. In the Matt Slick conversation you just had like a couple of weeks ago or whenever,
Yep.
you said you were a philosophical naturalist, right?
No, a methodological naturalist, not a philosophical naturalist.
Okay, I misheard you then, 'cause I thought you said that word accurately describes your position, what you believe about reality.
So in the process of having this conversation with him, I explained the difference between philosophical naturalism, which is this philosophical position that the natural is all that exists, which I think is an assertion that, depending on what your standard for knowledge might be, can't actually be met. My position is not that I am asserting that the natural is all that does exist. My position is more akin to methodological naturalism, where there's been no demonstration of anything other than the natural world and no demonstrated way to confirm the supernatural or supernatural causation.
Okay, sorry I misheard. Let me try this a different way then.
Okay.
What if I had a certain prayer or incantation in Latin, which when I said it would change a glass of water into wine? And what if everyone could do this? On demand, whenever they wanted, full scientific rigor.
Okay.
I mean, obviously that such a thing doesn't exist, but if such a thing did exist, science could show causation, yes?
Well, that's the thing.
No, they could show correlation between what you said and this happening, and you could probably reasonably say that there was a causal link between the magic words and the water changing, but the words are of natural origin. You haven't drawn a link to anything supernatural at this point.
Okay, so then what does it mean to defend methodological naturalism? If this prayer could be shown by science to work, then what is disallowed?
So the cause of why the prayer works has not been confirmed. If science could demonstrate that prayer works, that intercessory prayer works, although when we test it, it works at the rate of chance or worse, depending on whether somebody knows. But if science could demonstrate that, whether it happened for everybody or even a particular sect, they would say prayers, and those prayers, what they asked for or requested, would come to fruition. What we would have is confirmation of the efficacy of prayer, but we wouldn't have confirmation of why it works. Just like I could show you a magic trick over and over and over again, and you would then have confirmation that I could actually do this, but you do not know why or how I'm doing it until that is actually demonstrated.
Okay. So my problem is when you say science can't show supernatural causation, I think many Christians have a different understanding of the word supernatural. They
And
define
science.
their God to be supernatural.
Yeah.
So when they hear you say that, they think that science could never show their God exists. Do you agree with that, or you think
I don't know what most
exists?
Christians I don't know what most Christians think. My position is not that science cannot ever demonstrate supernatural causation. It's that there currently is no demonstrated mechanism by which to demonstrate supernatural causation, or that anything supernatural exists. It's not the fault of science that science can't confirm that a God exists. It's the fault of the God claim. If you propose something that is outside, it's like claiming that my ruler can't measure weight. That's not what it does.
I don't know. I think you're taking an accommodationist approach spawned from Stephen Jay Gould's NOMA. I don't think
No,
it's
I
right.
absolutely
No.
wholeheartedly reject NOMA and think it's one of the dumbest things anybody ever said.
No, I think, if I understand what Matt's saying, most Christians in particular assert that their God has some influence on the natural world. And so as soon as you make a claim that there's an influence, there's some effect on the natural world, and you define what that is, then you can investigate whether that effect actually exists.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that's happened with the research on the efficacy of prayers. The Christians are saying, hey, if we pray for people, then, they get better or whatever. Okay, so that's a claim. We can test that. And when we've tested it, that hasn't, been proven to be true. And so
I agree. It's been shown to be false.
So what we haven't done is
No.
No.
But
What
I'll let her
happens?
finish.
It's not true. that,
You don't think we have evidence that prayer does not work better than chance?
Let Jen finish.
what the research shows is that prayer does not work as claimed by these Christians. Okay, claiming that these claims are false or something like that is not necessarily the case. What we've said is that it's not working the way they say it is. There doesn't seem to be an effect there, and so you can't conclude that God answers prayers based on the evidence that we have. So then it goes back to what other effects are we talking about here? What other things can your God allegedly do? You brought up turning water into wine. If there were some way that we could test that, like you said, there's some incantation that you say and it magically turns water into wine. We could do a test and we could confirm that. And if we did, as Matt was saying, all we have is a demonstration that this works. It seems to be fairly consistent, but we still don't know why it works. So if there is a supernatural explanation, that is not evident from just confirming that this incantation turns water into wine.
And to answer your other question about whether we have enough to prove that something's false, this is the foundation of modern scientific skepticism, which is that you're not setting out to debunk, and it may not be possible to debunk. When we were looking at a claim, we need to figure out whether or not the claim is actually testable. And one aspect of testability is falsifiability. And so if you propose something that's unfalsifiable, then all you could ever hope to, well, actually, whether you propose something that's falsifiable or not, all you're ever hoping to do is confirm or fail to confirm. And if you fail to confirm, let's say dowsing, that somebody can grab a couple coat hangers and find stuff. Now, the top level claim that this is possible is untestable because it's unfalsifiable. But the specific claims of any given dowser saying, I can grab a couple of coat hangers and you can hide stuff in buckets and I can walk around and identify, that's a testable claim. And the only thing that we can hope to do is confirm that they can do what they say they can do, or fail to confirm, because if they don't pass the test, all we've shown is on that day, in that way, under those conditions, they have failed. That doesn't mean that they couldn't do it some other day, in some other way, under some other conditions. This is why skepticism, the modern skeptic movement, continually points out that they're not about debunking. This isn't about going out and trying to prove things false. You either confirm or fail to confirm. Now, when there's a wealth of failure to confirm, is it reasonable to tentatively accept that most likely this just isn't true? I think so, yes. But as far as confirming that the top level claim is false, if it's not falsifiable, you can't ever get there.
I don't understand the difference you mean to draw. When I say show to be false, I mean tentatively conclude is false. I mean all knowledge is tentative.
Okay, so what are you concluding is false? Like if I tell you that I can go out and grab two coat hangers and find hidden objects, and I fail to do this, are you tentatively concluding that dowsing is false?
If I had every single experiment for thousands of years, yes.
Well, no, I'm just talking about this one for now.
Well, that one's not good enough to make a general claim, I agree, but thousands of years of evidence is.
So that now you're back to agreeing with what I said at the end, that to accept, tentatively on the wealth of evidence that this is most likely not true, or not a real phenomenon, Sure.
Okay, but if you can conclude tentatively it's not a real phenomenon, could not it have it been otherwise, and you could have concluded that it was a real phenomenon?
You can always, if I succeeded in doing what I said I could do, then yes, you would have confirmed that I can do what I say I can do. But you haven't confirmed why.
I think you're hung up here, and it's a misunderstanding of science. I mean, why does a hammer fall? Because gravity, but gravity is just a model that makes predictions. There's no mechanism. Like at the end of the day, all materialistic explanations are going to come down to we don't know. It is because the evidence says it is.
No. What we do is, you're right, that gravity is a model of how the world operates. It may be that when we're talking about causes, I don't know that you could necessarily say that gravity is a cause, because when the hammer falls, there's more going on than just gravity. Like, if I'm holding it and let go, gravity is the force or the model that describes the action of it falling. But I wouldn't necessarily say that you could conclude that gravity was the cause, because the cause might have been me letting it go. When we're talking about causality, you have to determine what is both necessary and sufficient. And then among those things that would be necessary and sufficient, there is the idea of what is the most probable proximal cause.
Okay. So I take Hume's definition of causation, which is simply A's and B's. If you show correlation and you account for confounding variables, that's all a controlled experiment in a lab is.
I don't understand how this gets you to confirming supernatural causation, which was my initial objection to all of this.
Well, if I could show that the Latin prayer causes the water to transform into wine, right? If it were so true.
You could show that correlation, but that doesn't. There's nothing supernatural in there. Has been nothing.
No. Could I show causation? Forget supernatural. Could I show causation?
Could you show a causal link between uttering words and turning water into wine in your scenario? Yes.
Okay. If I can show that, then what does it mean to say science can never show supernatural causation? What is disallowed? What could I not do? I could show that there's a singing creature called a god.
You haven't.
That's very powerful. That can do whatever it wants seemingly. Maybe it's advanced aliens. Maybe it's not.
Yes, you can. Well, I don't know. It depends on those definitions. My point was that you cannot confirm that anything supernatural is going on.
By this reasoning, you can't confirm it's natural either. How can you confirm gravity is natural?
No. What we talked about is describing probabilistic causes based on the possible causes, the demonstrated possible causes. You have nothing supernatural that you can appeal to. There's nothing supernatural has been demonstrated. So go back to your example. Everybody on the planet can now utter a magical word, and I don't even know that we can call it a magical word, but everybody on the planet can utter some phrase and turn water into wine. So now we have a confirmed, testable process. Please demonstrate that is a supernatural cause as the cause.
Can you demonstrate it's natural?
I don't necessarily know that we can demonstrate that it has to be natural. I'm saying we have a natural uttering of words and a natural changing of water into wine. And if somebody wants to claim that there's something supernatural going on in either of those, or that there's something supernatural behind it as the explanation, they need to demonstrate that, and I don't know how they could.
Okay, well, let's back up. I think we should have done this earlier. How do you understand the word supernatural and natural? I think they're meaningless, mostly.
Okay, so supernatural is something other than outside the natural world.
What's the natural world by this definition? Is the prayer natural? It's natural because you can see it?
The words are.
So the description of the natural relates to all of the, perhaps this is reductivist, physical aspects of the universe.
Could I say mindless matter in motion?
Sorry?
Could I say mindless matter in motion?
I suppose so. I mean, I wouldn't want to necessarily conclude that mind is something other than natural.
Well, okay, I'm sorry. So if you define natural in this way, I don't know. I'm not sure we're getting anywhere.
You think that both of the words are useless, and I think that only one of them is, because the natural world exists. We use it, we live in it, we confirm it all the time. To the I mean,
if you say that,
hang on. Excluding the problem that we cannot solve hard solipsism, the natural world is what we experience. If we can't even agree that we're experiencing the natural world, then of course this conversation is useless.
Well, no, if you say we experience the natural world, and that's the definition of natural, then methodological naturalism is useless. It disallows nothing.
No.
It's meaningless.
Methodological naturalism simply describes the process by which we create models of nature to describe what happens in nature.
But it doesn't disallow any model. You just said that.
It does not allow for supernatural causation. For causation,
what does that mean? You have given
I just told you.
Which means it's.
I just told you that it means other than nature.
And you define nature seemingly as observable.
Yes.
Which means that science can only work on the observable, and I agree with that. But that's not.
You called in to say that science can prove the supernatural. And I've asked you
to say that
I've asked you.
It's confusing. I don't say it necessarily
Josh,
to show supernatural causation. I say that when you say they can't, it's
Josh,
because it's meaningless. Okay.
It says here that you say, I've said science can't prove the supernatural, and you think I'm wrong. So does that not mean that you think science can prove the supernatural?
No, I think the third option, incoherent.
Okay, I'm done with this call. This is a waste of time. I'm not going to argue semantics. Well,
okay.
Meaning is important, but this call isn't. Thanks. All right. I thought somebody was calling in to say that science could confirm the supernatural.
Yeah.
And now he says that that's not what he's saying. So he agrees with me.
That's kind of how his intro there read.
Yeah.
On there that he thought, yeah.
My point is, my position is not that science cannot ever confirm the supernatural. It's that at this time, there's been no demonstration that the supernatural exists, and no demonstrated mechanism by which to confirm the supernatural. I don't know why you would come up with an example where we can all utter a phrase and turn water into wine, because that doesn't get you to causation.
Right.
We can't even model it. Throw out causation, throw out the idea of cause entirely. Model this such that the supernatural is involved. And if his position, which it is that supernatural is an incoherent concept, then fine, then you're in agreement. I don't know why you bother to call it.